It started in the guest room. Mark, a 46-year-old divorcee, had just moved into his sister's old cottage in upstate New York. The place had been left untouched for nearly a year since her death. Peaceful, they said, a heart attack in her sleep. But Mark had never quite believed it. Something about her final voicemail to him still echoed in his memory. "Don't let it in, Mark. It knows you now." He had chalked it up to her long history of sleep paralysis, night terrors, hallucinations, all medically explainable. And yet, as he lay that first night on the unfamiliar bed, with the damp scent of mildew thick in the room, something about the silence felt intrusive, as if the house itself were holding its breath. When he finally drifted off, it was shallow, uneasy. Then, just past 3:12 a.m., his eyes snapped open. He couldn't move. His chest felt pinned by invisible hands, and he could swear something was crouched just above him, not sitting, perched, breathing. He could hear it, short, quick rasps, inches from his ear. His eyes darted across the room in panic. Everything was dark except for a faint pulse of red light coming from the hallway. A shadow moved, not outside, inside, at the foot of his bed. His mouth opened to scream, but no sound came. His lungs refused him. Then came a whisper, guttural and wet. "I see you now." Suddenly, he could move. He gasped violently, throwing himself off the bed and crashing onto the wooden floor. He scrambled for the lamp, his fingers fumbling. When it lit up, the room was empty. No shadow, no breath. But the faint imprint of something clawed remained on the bedsheet. The next day, Mark rummaged through his sister's things. Hidden beneath the floorboard of her closet, he found a leather-bound journal. Pages filled with frantic scrawls, erratic handwriting and symbols he didn't recognize. The last few entries chilled him. "It waits until you're still. That's when it climbs onto you. It doesn't feed on fear, it breeds it. I hear it even when I'm awake. Mark, it wants you too. It followed you before you even arrived." He wanted to leave right then, but something kept him anchored. Maybe guilt. Maybe something else. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat in the living room, lights on, eyes wide. At 3:12 a.m., the power cut out. Complete blackness swallowed the house. Mark froze. The silence became so thick he could hear the shift of the wood beams above him, as though something was moving in the crawl space. Then came the scratching, not animal, not consistent, like fingers dragging across sheetrock. He grabbed a flashlight from the drawer, hands trembling. He followed the sound upstairs. Every step felt like walking into an unseen fog, thick and whispering. When he reached the guest room, the flashlight flickered. In the beam of light, the wall above the bed was covered in handprints, hundreds of them, as if something had been crawling from inside the wall for years. And then he heard a growl behind him. Mark turned slowly. It stood there, tall, thin, impossible. Its face was a void, stretching open like torn fabric. No eyes, no mouth, just the sound of breathing, his own, echoing back at him. It tilted its head, mimicking his panic, then lunged. He fell backward, crashing through the bed frame, cutting his arm on splintered wood. When he looked up, it was gone. But something had changed. The air felt denser, as if reality itself had shifted just slightly off balance. He bandaged his wound, trembling, and called a local priest the next morning. Father Jean had seen his share of oddities, but nothing like this. He blessed every room, reading Latin with firm resolve. Mark watched, arms crossed, unsure if it would do anything, But when they reached the guest room, Father Jean stopped cold. He turned to Mark, pale. "There's something wrong with the time in this room. It's looping." The clock read 3:12, then 3:13, then 3:12, and again. Jean dropped his rosary. A shadow passed over the wall without source. Mark yelled for him to run, but the priest was frozen. Eyes rolled back. The house expelled him, literally. He was thrown out the front door as if the building itself had rejected him. Mark tried leaving the house that night. He packed, drove, fled. But every road led back. Every gas station was the same, and the digital clock on his dashboard, 3:12 a.m. He screamed, he cried, he begged no one in particular, but time had collapsed around him. Every moment stretched like wet paper. Every dream became a rerun of the same paralysis, over and over. Each night it returned, the weight, the breath, the whisper, "I see you now." He stopped journaling. He started carving. The walls of the house were etched with desperate notes, symbols, marks of time. He was becoming her, the sister he once called paranoid. And tonight, he heard her voice again, from beneath the bed. "Mark, you should have stayed away. It wears you now." His last words in the mirror. "I'm still awake. I never sleep. I won't let it in." But behind his reflection, the thing smiled. It started on a Wednesday. I remember because I had just gotten back from a client dinner, half tipsy and exhausted. My wife was out of town visiting her sister, so the house was eerily quiet. I tossed my keys on the kitchen counter and walked upstairs, kicking off my shoes lazily as I went. Everything felt normal at first, but as I lay in bed that night with the silence pressing in, I began to feel it. A subtle shift in the air, a prickling on the back of my neck, like I was being watched. At 3:17 a.m, I woke up gasping. I couldn't move. I was wide awake, eyes darting, heart racing, but my body refused to respond. It was like I was cemented to the bed. That's when I saw it. A shape in the corner, not a shadow, not a trick of the moonlight. It was darker than the room itself, and it was moving, slowly, deliberately, closer. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. My mouth was open, stretching wide with effort, but no sound passed my lips. The figure approached, inching closer with agonizing patience. It had no face, just a dense, black void where features should be. As it leaned over me, its presence felt like ice under my skin. Then it whispered, not words, not really, just sounds, like breath moving through broken reeds. When I finally jolted upright, drenched in sweat, it was 3:42 a.m. My chest ached. My throat was raw. But the room was empty again. I wanted to believe it was just a dream, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been there, that it had touched me, that it had seen me. The next night, I didn't want to sleep. I stayed up watching old sitcoms with the volume turned too high, trying to keep the darkness out of the corners. But eventually, exhaustion won, and again, at 3:17 a.m, I woke up, frozen. This time, it wasn't just the figure. I heard my name, clear, drawn out. Mikkel! It came from under the bed. That voice wasn't human. It was low, gurgling. like it was speaking through water. I could feel the mattress shift slightly, like something was crawling beneath me. My whole body screamed inside, but I couldn't move a muscle. After that night, things changed. Even in the daylight, I'd see things moving just out of my line of sight. The hallway lights flickered, though the bulbs were new. I heard footsteps when I was alone. At work, people said I looked tired, that my eyes were darker somehow. I saw a sleep specialist. She smiled politely and said it was sleep paralysis, stress, fatigue. She gave me a prescription and told me to keep a dream journal. But how do you write about something that feels more real than waking life? How do you describe the way it smells, like soil and rot, when it enters your room? One night I set up my phone to record myself. I wanted proof, or maybe I wanted to be proven wrong. When I watched the footage the next day, I nearly dropped my phone. At exactly 3:17 a.m, the screen went black, not dark, black, like something was covering the lens. And I could hear it, my name again, closer this time, angrier. I went to a priest. I'm not even religious, but desperation makes you try things. He prayed with me, blessed the house. For 2 nights it was quiet. I thought maybe it had worked, but the 3rd night it returned with rage. It didn't wait until 3:17 a.m. It came early. I was still awake when it entered. This time, I saw it crawl out from under the bed. Its limbs were wrong, bent in ways bones shouldn't bend. And it spoke again. But this time, I understood the words. You let me in. That's when I remembered. Years ago, during a backpacking trip, I'd stayed in a village in Romania. An old woman had given me a charm, told me it would protect me from the night devil. I laughed, took it as a souvenir. I found it again, broken, in the back of my drawer. The string had snapped. The protection was gone. I burned sage, slept with lights on, moved into the guest room. Nothing worked. It followed. It wasn't attached to the house. It was attached to me. My wife returned and noticed the change instantly. I looked thinner, she said. My eyes were hollow. She tried to sleep next to me, but woke up screaming the first night. She said she saw a figure standing on my chest, staring directly at her. She left the next day, said she needed space. I didn't blame her. I was terrified too, of sleeping, of being alone, of never waking up. In a last effort, I contacted a demonologist online. He asked for my story and responded with just one sentence. Once it speaks your name, it knows you. He told me to stop acknowledging it, to resist the paralysis, to reclaim my space. It sounded like nonsense, but I tried. That night, as the darkness crept in and the whispers began, I focused on moving a finger. Just one. It took every ounce of strength, but I did it. And when I moved that finger, the figure recoiled. It screamed, a sound I'll never forget. Not human, not animal, just pure ancient rage. It's been weeks now. I haven't seen it again. But I still wake up at 3:17 a.m. every single night, fully awake, no paralysis, just alert, aware, watching the room, waiting. And sometimes I hear it outside the window, not whispering, not moving, just breathing. People say dreams can't hurt you, that sleep is safe. But I know better now. Sleep is a door. And sometimes, something is on the other side, waiting for you to open it. It started during a chilly November night, the kind where the wind seemed to whisper things through the cracks of old windows. David had always been a deep sleeper, the kind of man who could doze off on a couch with the TV blaring. But that night was different. He had just turned 52, recently divorced, and adjusting to his new life in a modest apartment on the outskirts of town. Nothing about his new place screamed haunted or strange. It was quiet, dull even. But when he laid down that night, something changed. He didn't sleep, not even for a minute. His eyes remained wide open, blinking in the dark, waiting for fatigue that never came. At first, David blamed the stress, the move, the loneliness, the silence that filled his apartment like smoke. But by the third night of total insomnia, he began to feel a creeping sense of dread. Not just tiredness, but a kind of mental weight that clouded everything. He would lie motionless in bed, feeling a presence around him. It wasn't visual at first, more like a pressure in the room, an unseen breath on his cheek, a faint crackle, like static, just behind his ears. But he told himself it was nothing. He was tired, that's all. He needed rest. On the seventh night, David's understanding of reality began to fracture. It started with shadows that didn't move when they should have. He would blink and see the outline of someone standing near his bed. When he turned the lights on, there was nothing. But once, he caught a glimpse of it. A gaunt figure at the foot of his bed, with no face, only a pulsing blur where eyes should be. He couldn't scream. His voice died in his throat as he gasped silently, body frozen. That was the first time he saw her. In his mind, he called it a her, though nothing about the thing was human. She wore a long, tattered dress that moved even when the air was still, and her presence brought with it a scent, not decay, but something metallic and sharp. Blood? Iron? David wasn't sure. Every time she appeared, it was as if the temperature dropped, and when she leaned toward him, he felt his limbs lock up. He was paralyzed, awake, a prisoner inside his own body. David stopped trying to sleep. He drank coffee by the gallon, watched TV until the static scream burned his eyes. Yet the creature came anyway. He began experiencing brief blackouts, but not of sleep. He would be walking to the kitchen and suddenly find himself sitting on the floor in the bathroom, the mirror fogged up as if he'd just taken a shower. He hadn't. He would hear a whisper, something low and unintelligible, coming from behind him, only to turn and find nothing there. He began recording himself at night, desperate to understand what was happening. When he reviewed the footage, the camera picked up hours of darkness, stillness, and then static. At 3:14 a.m., every night, the screen fizzed with noise, and just barely, a frame appeared. Her face, blurred, shaking, looking directly into the camera. David's sister, Claire, was the first to visit. He hadn't wanted to tell her, but his erratic voicemails and late-night calls worried her. When she arrived, she noticed the bags under his eyes, the trembling hands, the paranoia. She stayed overnight, insisting he try to sleep while she kept watch. At 3:14 a.m., she heard the floorboards creak, but David hadn't moved. She turned toward the hallway, heart racing, and saw a silhouette past the open door. The next morning, Claire was gone. Her bag, her car, her phone, all still there. No note, no trace. Just her watch, left ticking beside the bathroom sink, stopped exactly at 3:14. The police assumed she ran off, overwhelmed by her brother's mental decline. David knew better. He saw her in his dreams now, standing beside the faceless woman, eyes wide and mouth sewn shut. Desperate, David saw a sleep specialist. Dr. Kessler was kind, gentle, but skeptical. She agreed to a home visit and brought monitoring equipment. That night, she stayed in the guest room while her machines tracked David's REM cycles, or lack thereof. At 3:14, the machines spiked violently, heart rate erratic, brain activity surging, and then silence. All readings flatlined for 42 seconds before returning. Dr. Kessler reviewed the data the next day, pale and shaken. She wouldn't speak about it. She simply packed her things and left. Weeks later, David found out she had checked herself into a psychiatric facility. Her note was short. Some dreams are not dreams. Some sleep is not ours. David gave up on being rescued. He stopped talking to people. He boarded up the windows. His apartment grew dark, cold, isolated. The woman, the nightmare, came earlier now, not just at 3:14, but whenever he felt the pull of sleep. She whispered things to him, showed him images, told him he belonged to her now, part of the hollowed. His last diary entry was dated December 12th. It read, "She sleeps in me now. I close my eyes, and she opens hers." The camera, still recording, showed him lying on the bed, unmoving, his eyes open, his mouth smiling faintly. At 3:14 a.m., the lights flickered, and then, on the wall behind him, a shadow moved, not from him, but toward him.